Okay, so today will be a very important module as always, and this concept has, fundamentally changed my life. Today I discovered this, and this is a constant work in progress. Just because this doesn't mean you're able to fully implement and fully grasp and practice it, like the Dalai Lama said. There are like three levels of knowledge and awareness. The first is it, then the highest levels where you actually embody it without second thought. It's like second nature. It's like a lot of people know certain concepts and stuff, but whether they practice it, it's a totally different story. Okay, so understanding thyself. So when it comes to this world, the entire goal of this is for us to evolve our consciousness and evolve our understanding of ourselves, the world and stuff. So there's like three evolution, like when we are just really young until the age of like maybe 16, 17, 25, most of us are no better than animals, Not to say there's anything wrong with animals, but what I mean by this is most animals, like, they operate out of their instincts that they were programmed with, and they just have like a knee-jerk reaction. They are very easily manipulated and stuff, and that's what most humans are, when we're young until the age of like 16, 17, 25. That's why you see, like, for example, like some animals, if they get hungry, they just eat whatever. They have like no self-control, and that's what most humans are up to a certain age, and some even beyond that. That's why you see, if people who are like bullies when they're young, young kids who do bad things, it's not because they are consciously wanting to do it. It's because they were subconsciously programmed to do it, based on their influence, based on their environment, based on the people that they spend around time with, and most of us, we just act out of our instincts and out of what we have been conditioned by society. Then the middle stage, this is where most humans are in this world, where most people, they evolve a little, but they're still not fully aware of their biases. They're not fully aware of all these instincts, and that's why you see like road rage happens, where somebody gets pissed, then they shoot the other guy, or they get into a brawl, they get into a fist fight, whatever, and they sacrifice their entire life just for 5 minutes of the time. They can't control their own anger, emotions and stuff, and that is what most of the world is operating at. Unfortunately, that's sad to say, but that's the fact. Then the goal is to evolve beyond most humans. And why do you want to evolve? I'll show you the reason why in a bit. But you need to understand this powerful concept. This is very true. You can't deny this fact. Everything I'm sharing you is all factual. Whether you choose to accept it or not, why is this world created like this? Why are humans created like this? Why humans know better than animals? Humans are so unevolved. I don't know, but these are the facts, and we just gotta accept it and just try to evolve. So Sigmund Freud, he's one of the founding father of psychology. He said the mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. So this is how most humans and most of us operate in, like every action we do, a lot of things that we do, it's on the subconscious or unconscious level. And what it means by that is, because there have been studies that show that humans, there's like too many things to perceive on a daily basis, and that's why we need some of this instinctual sort of reaction to save our life. Let's say like a scary dog is running towards us. we don't have a minute to think and decide with our conscious brain, oh, what should I do? Your subconscious mind will just tell you to run, you know? Let's say somebody tries to rob you, somebody takes out a gun and point at you. Your conscious mind have no reaction to it. Like, it takes too long to react, and that's why the subconscious mind kicks in. And this applies to our daily life as well. Let's say, like, you have so many choices to make. Let's say you want to buy ice cream, and there's like 10 flavors. Your conscious mind wouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna logically choose this flavor because this tastes the best. This is this degree of sweetness. I like this color. This is healthy for me. Nope, it's on the subconscious or unconscious level. Oh, my taste bud likes this. It tastes good to me individually. I'll just go ahead with that. And that is why a lot of people are very emotional people, because they operate on a subconscious level. Let's say somebody like scolds you or honks at you while driving. Let's say somebody on the street just randomly slaps you. Your knee-jerk subconscious or unconscious reaction is to like try to fight back or whatever. But if we evolve ourselves and we understand our subconscious and unconscious mind, that would help us make our lives way better. So the difference between the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious is, like, the conscious is like what we are aware of, like the words we say, everything. The subconscious is below that. It's a bit more subtle, like sometimes we don't know that we're doing it, sometimes we know. The unconscious, this is like sort of our unknowns. This is the biases that we don't even know about. This could be because of our upbringing, because of the conditioning over the years by society and stuff. And the unconscious mind is the most dangerous thing, because it can work for you or it can work against you. Let's say like NBA players, or MMA fighters, or anyone who do a certain sport. They practice so much that everything just becomes instinctual. They don't think like the best basketball players in the world, the best like fighters in the world, sports athletes. They don't think, it's all on the unconscious level. It just happens. They don't think like, oh, I'm gonna do this. It's all like through practice and stuff, And so when it comes to our daily life and stuff, we must always try to unravel and uncover the subconscious and unconscious mind. Otherwise, this would be our Achilles heel. This would be our weakness, and this could literally mess up our life, ruin our life. That's why a lot of people go to visit like psychologists, therapists, to unravel and uncover a lot of like sort of childhood trauma, a lot of things that have been conditioned and wired the wrong way. And that's why you see like a lot of criminals and whatnot, they always, not all of them, but a lot of them have some sort of really troubled childhood when growing up that shaped them to not be, to not do good things, okay? So always keep in mind that in most of our life, most of us are operating maybe like 10% consciously, and most of it is subconscious and unconsciously. But the most important thing is catching ourselves and saying like, hey, am I like consciously reacting to this, or am I like angry or emotional because it's at a subconscious or unconscious level? Am I like judging this person? Am I being like sort of like judgmental, racist, or whatever because of my past experience? And that's your unconscious and subconscious mind. That's not your conscious mind. Because your conscious mind would be like, oh, just because I've had a bad experience with this type of person, maybe I should give this person the benefit of doubt, rather than like just assuming and associating my previous negative experience with this, So our plasticity at different ages. So this is just an important fact to know, that our prefrontal cortex brain develops at the age of 25, and this is where it helps us, this part of our brain, the frontal lobe, helps us with our decision making, planning, the logical stuff, not the animal brain. This is the logical side of brain to help us with reasoning and all. So why do we need to know that? So this guy, Dr. David Buss, he's the founder of one of the founders of evolutionary psychology. And he shared, I'm not trying to butcher him or misquote him, but he shared along the lines where like most adults after a certain age it's very difficult for them to change because the plasticity in our brain is so wired and so fixated. That's a study that shows that humans, like, of the millions of thoughts in our mind or thousands of thoughts in our minds on a daily basis, majority of it is the same. So that's why you see like most older people, they're so stuck in their ways, they're so habits develop so strong, like Warren Buffett says, like the habits are too strong until you can't feel it. um like some habits are just too strong that you can't even change it because it's the same sort of repetitive thought and action that we think. So the older somebody is, the longer that habit or thought keeps repeating itself, and that's why you see like older people always, most older people, the older they get, they have like these weird habits or thoughts or judgments that is just you can't change it. And that's why the saying goes like you can't teach old dogs new tricks. Unfortunately, that's the case for most people because they are unaware of this. So why am I trying to share with you? So from the age of 1 until really like not even 16 now, even until the age of 16, most of us are operating at the subconscious and unconscious level. Like, our emotions, our instincts, our angers, our moods and stuff. We're not consciously reacting to it. It's all on the subconscious and unconscious level. And that's why like we're no better than animals. Because we're just like not consciously aware of what we're doing, and we're just so wired just based on our environment, our influence around us, what society has conditioned us to be. Until the age of 25, that's when you can really have a better reasoning skill and really be more conscious, like, oh, of all of this. And it's both because our brain has developed fully by then, and also because when we are like 16 and around there, we are not aware of all of this. Like no one in school taught us this, our parents didn't teach us this, so we are all like slaves to our subconscious mind. We're all slaves to our animal instincts. That's why you see so many like rebellious like teenagers, so many like nonsense things happen like during high school and stuff, because it's like you're like gathering a bunch of animals together. um you know for lack of a better way. And so we know that between the age of 25 to around like 40ish, like that, or so, that's when you have the most chance of like really changing yourself. Because after that you can, but it just gets more difficult with age and with time. That's why I'm showing you this timeline for you to catch yourself, whether you accept or not. This is a fact. So why do we need to understand our bias? It's to help us, number one, become a better human being. Why do you want to become a better human being? On a selfish level, to help make this world better, help other people. On a more selfish level, if you're a better human being, like more people would help you, and if you're able to like be a better human being, more people would you attract. On a physical level, people would help you better, you attract better humans, and all that. Next is for us to not be easily manipulated. The most famous author on influence and psychology wrote the book Persuasion or Persuasion, is to help prevent people from being manipulated by big brands. All the big brands with the marketing and stuff. Like let's say they sell junk food, but just because like an athlete is eating or drinking it, then we think, oh, that's the case. And the third is for us to ethically influence people. If you're getting to business like what we're teaching over here, you need to ethically influence people to sell them. And the next one is for us to not be a slave to our own mind. For us to not be a slave to our own mind, because most people are a slave to their own mind. They can't control They don't even know what they're thinking, they're not even operating at a conscious level. It's all subconscious, it's all emotions, it's all instincts. They don't even know why they're reacting that way. They don't even know why they're thinking that certain thoughts. It's all just programmed over the years by society, external influences, and whatnot. As this saying goes, which is very true, when someone tries to trigger you by insulting you or by doing or saying something that irritates you, switch off your ego, because remember that if you're easily offended, you're easily manipulated. What this means, this is a really good example. It's like we're no better than like monkeys or animals. Let's say somebody slaps us or do something bad to us, then if that just easily upsets us, it means we're easily manipulated. It means we do not have control of our own emotions. It means other people have control of our own emotions. So that's why we gotta understand our biases, so that we are in control and not other people being in control of us. So that we're not just like a monkey. Okay, so we're gonna go through like a lot of examples, so that we understand. So first we go through Charlie Munger, the late billionaire, partner of Warren Buffett. He was the one who created this book. He wrote this book on psychology and human judgment. So we just quickly go through it, just to go give you a couple of examples, just to like really drill in the point. And you can Google this yourself if you want to. So first of all, biases just means, cognitive biases just means, these are things that influences on a subconscious and unconscious level, so that we're able to make quick decisions. Because again, you need to understand how the human mind operates. Every day there's like millions of decisions to make. Our brain can't consciously make all those decisions, otherwise it would take too much of bandwidth, it would take too much of cognitive load, it would take too much of energy. And that's why our brain tries to conserve energy by making decisions on a subconscious or unconscious, emotional, sort of instinctual, animal instinct sort of basis, primal sort of instinct, not on a conscious level. So first is reward and punishment. This is something that's very simple. If parents say like, oh, do your laundry, you get $10, then people react to it. Punishment is like the law. If you kill somebody, you're gonna get put to jail. Next is liking and loving. So a very good example of this is, let's say like your most loved favorite celebrity, like they could do something bad, like a bad deed, and you'd still forgive them. You're like, oh, you're very forgiving on the deeds, like, oh, might be a mistake, oh, that person wasn't intentional. But if there's somebody you don't like, disliking biases, there's somebody you don't like for whatever reason, you just don't like them because of like a negative experience, because of your misjudgment of them, because of how they look, whatever the reason is, then the slightest thing that they do wrong, you're like, oh, this person's such an evil person. So this is a really good example. Doubt avoidance. Yeah, this is, for example, like there's a study, it shows, would you take like $100 with 100% guarantee, or would you take a 50-50 chance that you get like double the money, $200? Or if the coin is flipped, you get zero. Most people would take the $100 because there's certainty. And this is why most people settle for like a 9-to-5 job. There's nothing wrong with it, but you just need to understand like this is why, because humans like certainty. We want like a constant paycheck on a daily basis, so that we feel certain and we feel sure. And knowing that this bias about yourself, know that when it comes to like entrepreneurship, starting your own business, you gotta fight against this, because when you're first starting out, there's no certainty in the start, but only later on. Next is, humans are naturally curious, and that's why you see like when there's a gossip, when there's like a car accident, people want to know, oh, like what's happening, like gossips and all that. Next is jealous, envious. a lot of people are jealous, keeping up the Jones. They see that somebody else is successful, they get jealous of this. And again, why I'm showing you all of this and why we got to be aware of this is so that, as I showed you just now, number one, you can become a better human being for both selfish and selfless reasons. Number two, so that we stop being a slave to our own brain, And number three is so that we can ethically influence people. When it comes to business, you need to know all this to ethically influence and sell people, okay? Next is like conscience, fairness. Like most people wants things to be fair, and the justice that influences them and stuff. That's why kids is like, kids always say, oh, that's unfair, why is the world so unfair? Because we all want things to be fair, we don't want things like, oh, why is it so unfair for me, Next is reciprocity. So like when somebody do something good to us, we have a bias to do something good to them, and the inverse is true. Let's say somebody like slap us in the face, if you feel compelled to slap them back, Influence from mere association, and that's why you see like a lot of big brands, they hire celebrities to wear their brand or eat their product or use their product so that they have the association with the celebrity. I can literally go on and on. But you can search this yourself when you're free. I'll just go to a couple more. Authority. So we always look to authority figures. That's why like when we visit a doctor and stuff, we instinctually trust a doctor just because they have like a PhD. Sorry, not PhD, just because they're called a doctor, just because like we think that just because somebody's a doctor means they know things, Well, that's true. It doesn't mean it's always true, Some doctors are like quack doctors, some doctors are like fake doctors. They just simply prescribe you. They are not, sometimes like the internet can give you better advice than the doctors who are like incentivized to, prescribe you like wrong stuff and whatnot, just to make money. Let me see. Yeah, next one is availability bias. So when an information is readily available and easy to read, then we think that that is more true. For example, this is how misinformation spread, just because like a slogan or something is easy to remember and easy to like catch on and remember, then we think that's true when it's not. Contrast, this is like if you go to a shopping mall, you buy something, rather than saying something is $100, you'll make it look cheaper if it says, oh, this was $200, but you're getting it for 50% off, for example. Social proof, this is, showing like a lot of people using it, then we're like, oh, just because our friends are using this social media app or using this app, then we want to use it because that's social proof. And don't get me wrong, like some of this are useful because it gives our brain the heuristic and shortcut to make a decision. That's why there's a book called The Wisdom of Crowds, because if a lot of people are doing it together based on independent thinking, then there's also like a higher likelihood that it might be true, but the inverse might not be true as well, just because a lot of people might have herd mentality. They just copy others and think if that's what other people are doing, they should do it as well. This is pretty self-explanatory. Some people are over-optimistic, some people regard themselves too highly. Yeah, there's this syndrome called I forgot what the word is, and this is why a lot of like successful people fail their next venture, because when somebody has success in a certain industry, they think they can conquer the world. Then when they start on a different business, on a different space, then they fail because they think they're so good. But Warren Buffett said, he focuses and stays within his circle of competence and don't think that he is so good and he's so great that he can just do whatever he wants. He sticks with what he's good at. Okay. Yeah, this one, consistency and commitment tendency. Yeah, so a lot of people fall for this. It's like, let's say you've booked a flight to a certain place, and let's say like few days before your flight, a major accident happens over there, and there's a risk that you might endanger yourself and your family, but you're like, oh, I already planned this trip, I'm just gonna go ahead with it, but not knowing that about sunk cost is like, you spend that money, it's already gone, even if you don't go for it, you go for it, it's gone, but people just, they're consistent with like what they think, and that's the most dangerous thing in the world, this billionaire on YouTube say like his superpower is being able to change his mind quickly, because most people, and what he means by that is most people are stuck in their ways, they just, let's say they believe in this certain ideology, they think about this, then they think that's always true, and they don't want to change their mind, but the most important superpower you can have is when the facts change, when the facts reveal themselves, you gotta change your mind, because we cannot be delusional if you want to live a great life. Yeah, so all these are like the same stuff. So as you understand psychology and you understand this more and more, you really understand how humans operate, and you really understand how the world is, why the world is like, this right now, and you really understand humans deep down, it took me a long time, many years to really learn, keep learning, and I'm still learning. Yeah, another one is scarcity. It means like if a brand say like, oh, they have like 5 products left, it creates some sort of urgency, or like, oh, this is gonna expire tomorrow, it makes you want to buy this. Yeah, so all these are just examples, just to open your mind, just to show you that, we all succumb to this, when we're all, not so conscious of, we're all not that conscious of people, a lot of us are like semi animals, because we are just based off our unconscious, operating of our unconscious, subconscious, emotional, primal animal instincts, that's the truth, whether we like it or not. Okay, yeah, these are some good ones as well. See, there's so many, like it's impossible for me to cover everything over here. You can see there's 100 over here, but this is just to give you an introduction. It's just to give that awareness, is like opening up your mind to this world that you never even knew of, I'm like helping you uncover your unknowns so that you can slowly understand all this yourself. A few more examples, like, yeah, more options leads to harder decisions, and that's why there's this study. It shows like, oh, if there's like a ice cream store with 36 flavors compared to an ice cream store with like 3 flavors, the ice cream store with 3 flavors usually do better because it's easier for people to make a decision. Confirmation bias is like, let's say we like a certain presidential candidate, then if he does something good, then you're like, oh, I knew it, this is a great guy, and the inverse is true, we look for evidence that confirms what we already think or assume or judge. If we think somebody is a bad guy, we try to look for evidence that shows that this person is not a good guy, You can see there's literally so many, like the entire point of this video is just to show, just to reveal that hey, we are all slaves to our mind to a certain extent, and we're trying to evolve, that's the point of this video. I'm not trying to break everything down, it would take literally forever. That could be a video for another day, but it's just to really show us that, we're operating at the subconscious and unconscious level, and it's for us to rise and be more conscious, and for us to elevate ourselves. Yeah, so the final thing is, and this explains why, like, You know, people say like there's discrimination, there's like racism. You know, people discriminate based on age, based on disability. If somebody is like autistic, somebody like looks doesn't dress well, you know, people like underestimate like women, like a lot of like women rights, you know, feminism and stuff. It's all true, you know. You don't need somebody to tell you that it's true. If you understand human psychology, you would know that it's true for sure, you know. People discriminate based on race, and you can see a lot of this discrimination doesn't happen on a conscious level. It's not like somebody is like, oh, you know, a lot of this happens on an unconscious level, and that's why we need to be conscious of this to overcome all of this, you know, to again achieve the goal of being a better human, not being easily manipulated, ethically influence people, and not be a slave to our own mind. You know, people treat a certain gender better. So many different forms of discrimination, you know, ageism, sexism, you know, racism. It's all true, you know, because that's how human psychology works if you understand it. So hope this video gives you a glimpse and really open up your mind. You can always Google all of this and learn this yourself, but once you understand this, it just makes you be more aware, and this is how you can operate at a higher level, you know. And a lot of like this, you know, psychology like biases and stuff, this was written by a billionaire, Charlie Munger, and he uses that for business. So you can see like a lot of these billionaires, when you study, like all of them studied this, and that's why like they're able to raise their consciousness to another level, and they're able to be wealthier because they're not operating at the animal instinct that most people are operating at, you know. They're operating at a higher level, at a more rational, logical level, and that's why they're able to make better decisions compared to most people. So this is not just like some airy-fairy thing that isn't applicable to our real life. This is very applicable, and the smartest, sharpest, like most successful people, all of them know about this. You're all aware of this because you need to be aware of your own psychological biases and your own mind and how it works for you to make better decisions. If you can make better decisions, you'd have a better quality of life. You know, you'd be wealthier, richer, happier, healthier, and everything you want in your life. You know, this plays an important part and role. So hope this helps, and see you on the next one.